Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back on another video from Totally Not Mark, and we're continuing with his Hunter x Hunter reviews. And we are on what I think is the weakest story arc of the Hunter x Hunter series, which is Greed Island. Again, I am anime only. Totally Not Mark is manga only, so I don't know if there is a difference in the way that the story is portrayed within the manga, but I thought that Greed Island started off quite interesting and strong and a lot of mystery, and then when it got into it, it's a bit like, what's it doing? I thought the villain was very weak. It had its moments, like the Hisoka dodgeball fight was cool, the Phantom Troop finding the island, and you realising that it's not actually in a game. It's all Nen stuff, and then it's like adds more questions than anything else, and it's, yeah, you get a little bit more on Gon's dad with these people that have met him and that. Well, and why they're there because of him and that, but let's see what Totally Not Mark has to say on this, shall we? Oh, starting up like the PlayStation, that's class. That's just the upside down joystick. That's class. Oh, this is dead cut. Wow, how have they done this? This is brilliant. It's proper PlayStation 1 graphics. Nah, because it's in a game, new game. I like how they continued and have like the letters lit up as well.
The worst and the best arc so far.
Right, okay.
And by that I mean I had more
Interesting.
fun the first half of this arc than I did pretty much with any of the others, and it had a brilliant balance of emotion.
Yeah, it starts off class.
Creating a wonderful cacophony that rang beautifully in my ears. However, on the other hand,
oh god.
this arc has some of what I thought were the lowest points in the series in terms of entertainment.
Wow, here we go. Yeah.
It also ended up having some of my favorite stuff out of the series, period. So, what are we waiting for?
Let's get into it.
This video game that turned out to be way more scary than I thought it would, and way more thought out than I could have ever
Yeah, there's a
anticipated.
lot
I'm Toy Not Mark, and this is my
going on in the
review
game.
for the clunky, the exciting, and intensely interesting
Greed Island.
But first, some housekeeping for York New City. Last week I said Hunter x Hunter from 1999 was over, and
Yeah.
comments proceeded to yell at me about how Greed Island is covered in the OVAs.
Oh!
Look, I know
Right.
they exist, but it's not really the same series. The original 99 series and the final York New OVA were both directed by the legendary Kazuhiro Furuhashi,
Okay.
who's known for Rurouni Kenshin. He has such
Oh,
a distinct
whoa.
style and a huge number of industry contacts that helped elevate that series into something
So there was an
special.
OVA for
However,
it,
with
right.
the Greed Island OVAs, Furuhashi is gone. Instead replaced by Yukihiro Matsushita
Oh, different
and
guy.
Makoto Sato for parts 1 and 2 respectively. While the former did an okay job, the latter was pretty atrocious, and overall
damn.
the OVAs are pretty poor, and I don't think they're worth talking
Oh,
about.
what's
beyond
Hisoka looking like that for?
uh,
Oh my
Ultimately,
god.
the point is that the staff and overall approach to the series in both tone and
It's
animation
different.
quality is so vastly different
Right.
that a lot of people today just don't even consider it part of the original
Right,
series.
okay.
Additionally, on the review front, as I closed out my last video, a few of you might have felt as though the video ended abruptly, and you know, I can see why. And I think personally, from a creative point of view, my writing of that ending mostly spawned from it feeling sort of abrupt to me too.
Oh, okay.
I really admired York News'
This felt like it came out of
dedication to
nowhere kind of thing,
mafia-style
yeah.
story, and I love the interactions and choices made throughout. In some ways, I really liked that the arc ended with Kurapika employing strategy in order to avoid conflict, and overall, the arc subverted many expectations in that respect.
Yep.
However, I do think that the arc didn't feel like it had a definitive ending, and honestly,
I don't think it did either. I like it. I like it was open-ended.
So readily and easily into
Because
the
it
next.
does eventually come
Finding
back.
the
All this stuff
dividing
happens here,
lines
yeah.
between different arcs,
The
particularly
Crollo
at the end
and
of York New
Hisoka
felt
thing comes
difficult.
back into it,
And
no?
I think that's partially why I decided to make Paku's sacrifice the big climactic moment to end that particular video.
It was
arc.
epic, like.
It just felt right to me. Okay, with that now out of the way,
Loading
let's
in.
get into Greed Island.
Alright.
I think one of the strongest aspects of Greed Island is also one of its biggest weaknesses. Ironic as it may sound, but I think it's true. This arc takes itself quite seriously, and as such, regarding exposition, it can get quite heavy sometimes a little down the road, but I'll touch on that a little more later. This story does take itself very seriously, and you know what? I think it should. I mean, it's dealing with some truly mature subject matter with Gon and the others, and as
But
a
you're in
result,
a
tons of focus
game,
is given
it's
to
like,
the structure of the story as well as the game itself. Without delay, the arc starts, and under no circumstances are we left hanging wondering what the Spider Troop, or Phantom Troop, whatever you want to call it.
That was class when they just walk into them.
The themselves explicitly tell them that they aren't after them right now due to the curse placed on Crollo. It's a simple decision to make, but it made the story that much more digestible and enabled me to give Gunn's portion of the story my full attention. And speaking of, finally, we get the auction that we've all been
Yay!
waiting for.
Let's get the PlayStation.
Once the game Greed Island became the topic of the scene, I was delighted. I'm supremely invested in how Gunn's search for his father will proceed, and I can't wait to see what lengths
Getting
this
closer.
game will push
Getting
him to.
closer.
I also like how Gunn in almost every scene proves how perceptive he actually is. Despite him looking and acting like a naive
He
kid,
does
9
seem
times out of
stupid,
10,
but he's not.
always got his head screwed on tight.
He knows what to do next, yeah.
Information like, I don't know, for instance, Jing not being the seller. It's not important now, but similar to when we were on the tower during the Hunter exams, Gon remembers elements that he can reapply to a later problem. In other words, I love the consistent character writing Togashi continues to produce for him
Definitely.
and his other characters. There are indeed small moments like him accidentally raising his hand and bidding exorbitant amounts of money
That's
on
funny.
the game, but those instances are born out of innocence, not a lack of intelligence.
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
think
yeah.
That's an important distinction to make. When Gon understands what he needs to do,
He'll do it.
always seems to find a way out of it
Yeah.
in extremely creative and clever ways. And that comes
It is
to
cool
light
when they start
in
expanding on the
chapters
Nen
of
abilities,
the
yeah,
story
like
section.
in, yeah.
For example, his plan to not actually buy
Rock,
the
paper,
game,
scissors,
but
is
to
it that they
instead
do?
keep
Yeah.
tabs on who buys it so that he can play alongside the winning bidder. After all, they don't need the game, just the data. And
They just need
it's a
us to get
great
in,
observation
yeah.
And one that makes their likelihood of success reaching their goal that much more realistic. And that's not all. When the gentleman declines the offer for them to play, citing that they currently are looking for experienced hunters to participate, Gon remembers that the game can have unlimited players. These are small, easily missed instances, but you best believe very few people have this level of applied logic at the drop of a hat under pressure.
Yeah, he's like straight away, like, but what about this? But what about that? Nah, you're wrong about that.
Character as I was reading. Killua might be number one in the popularity polls in Japan, but good God Almighty, I love Gon.
Yeah.
Also, I'm not sure how noteworthy or important this will become later down the line, but I'm a little interested in what's happening in the background of this story concerning Killua's brother. At every single auction, he seems to be bested when trying to bid for Greed Island. Looking back now, this could just be Togashi's vehicle for him to establish this exceptionally affluent individual who ends up buying up all the copies of the game, but it seems strange to me to use a named character to achieve this when you could just as easily make up a random person.
No, doesn't he help them out
It might be
later on
nothing
down the
worth
line on
mentioning
phone
in case it
somewhere
goes
as well?
somewhere down the
Can't
line.
remember.
But anyway,
Can't,
as
oh.
the boys train to nab a spot
Can't
among
remember.
those playing the game of Greed Island, the means with which they strive to refine or hone their abilities borders on the path illogical. Oh, and after receiving some insight from Kurapika, I learned that he held chains, slept with chains, looked at chains,
Lived chains.
and sketched chains like one of his French girls for an ungodly amount of time, which suggests that Kurapika didn't just conjure a shovel like I thought he did for the purposes of bearing UFO, but instead he brought one in advance.
Yeah.
Let that sink in.
Like, the whole
It's
roll was
really
already
cool
dug.
getting
He was
to see
filling
the
it in.
determined Killua refine and discover his special ability,
Yeah,
but
it's
Gon's
like,
struggle once
I'm sure that was
again
in one of
seems to be
Nux's
the most
biggest flexes in anime
interesting.
videos, like,
Particular
a couple of
focus
years
we have
ago.
Togashi to show us that Gon is amazing time and again throughout the series, only for him to undercut himself time and again when he's alone. He doesn't believe in himself, with all of these instances together acting as subtle reminders that he's struggling with self-esteem deep down. And really, all of these occurrences dotted throughout this story have to, in some way, blow up at some point. There's simply been too many examples of this behavior not to manifest in something substantial or a climax at some point. And that's not even all that I appreciated within this training portion. The idea that Togashi had for empowering the two boys was honestly brilliant. Having already, chapters prior, established what it took Kurapika to conjure chains like he did, we now understand what the equivalent would be for transmuters like Killua or enhancers like Gon.
Yeah.
In other words, they couldn't possibly make up the difference overnight, and so they decided to lean into their past traumas from their family life. Killua spent years being shot.
Starts to electrocute himself.
As a result, now he manifests lightning from his fingers like some sort of Sith.
It's sick.
I
It is so
mentioned
cool.
before that a large part of his story comes from his determination to blaze his own trail and to do his own thing.
Oh, mate.
From his family. However, it's that
In the Chimera arc where he just goes like, bloody... Zah!
However, on a positive note, he seems to be utilizing that trauma to bolster his efforts independent of his
Hell
family.
yes.
As far as the
This is
auditions
Super
go,
Saiyan
both of them
2.
qualified exceptionally
This
easily,
is
and
going beyond
let's go
Super
into
Saiyan.
the game. The visuals are
It does look great.
distinguishable from pretty much
Yeah.
everything else I've seen in the series. series thus far, at least in the manga. The backgrounds are intricately detailed.
Cool. That does look really cool.
So, despite the solid black colours in the background, the characters are
Must have
always
taken ages to fill in.
making these pages exceptionally easy to digest. And that's important because this is one of the first places where they give us the rules of the game.
Yes.
And surprisingly, the game sounds pretty engaging, you know?
Yeah, it does. It would be.
Within a manga series for the purposes of a single arc from the early 2000s.
Yeah. To think when you think about that, they've made up rules and everything, how the game works and everything, and all the cards and all that, just for this story arc.
I'm honestly so jealous I want to be there, but also not because I'd probably almost definitely die. Actually, you know what? That reminds me. I asked a few people what sort of Nen power they thought I might have, and I figured I'd ask you guys the same. Of all the Nen types, which do you think I would be, given my personality or what you know about me? Leave a comment down below.
That's an interesting question. That's quite funny.
More on the Greed Island front, one thing that caught my attention before Gon entered the main area was the message he received from Jing and the subsequent conversation he had with Killua about it afterwards.
Hating him every week.
Can enter the game at any given time. This offered Togashi something I would never have thought to do, and it's completely changed my impression of Gon as a character and what I think his goal really is. The impression Jing has given me is that he's a pretty messed up person and certainly not a good father, to put it mildly.
I don't. Well, okay. Initially, it does seem that way. I think I take it for granted that I know what happens later.
He says, "Welcome, Gon. This is the game I made with my friends. Well, go ahead and enjoy. If you thought there'd be a clue to help you find me,
Too bad.
I just wanted to show off our game. Hey, anyway, now you're stuck here until you get the item that'll let you out, so play your heart out." I didn't think much of this message from him until I heard Gon's recanting of the message back to Killua
Right.
and asked about it. Gon says, and I quote, "Yeah, Jing told me to enjoy the game." If that's all he thought was worth repeating from that message, then I think that speaks volumes for Gon's mindset here. Sometimes it's not what you say, but what
How?
you don't say.
Right.
I think he sincerely wants to find a connection with his father now, and doesn't want to accept that his father isn't what he wants him to be.
Yeah, or that his dad's not interested in that. Like, it's like, yeah, it's like, okay, I'll do this.
Maybe if he can improve and better himself, then maybe Jing will want to be his father.
Actually want to hang out with him. It's like, oh.
Take this eventual interaction, I'm certain it will leave me in a flood of tears.
No. You're gonna be disappointed if that's what you're expecting.
After arriving at the first town, Gon and Killua are faced with the reality of their situation.
Oh, the bombs.
Furthermore, the
The bomb man.
consequences of this reality becomes all the more clear. And interestingly, this acts as a great opportunity for the story to share with us some new characters and introduce us to the metagame or strategy some folks have decided to employ within this world. There are those looking to kill as many people as they can to free up the different cards they need to collect, and then there are those that want to gain a monopoly on the cards in circulation.
Yeah, there's a system going on here.
These factions and ideologies, it's clear that this game was designed to push people into conflict around.
Because there's rarer cards than others, isn't there? There's multiple.
As many cards as they can,
Yeah.
whatever way they can, living up to its name, Greed Island. Somewhat appropriate that this game was created in part by the admittedly selfish Jing. Somewhat curiously, however, this whole scene with the recruiters to enlist Gon and Killua, I thought it would be a vehicle for a clearly defined goal moving towards the conclusion.
But
You know,
no.
I thought they would join. Well, that didn't exactly happen.
No.
俺はいい自力でプレイするからリーダーがそう言うんだな
You've heard the boss.
Gon outright refuses to participate and soon afterwards confirms my worry. He didn't join because he didn't want to hear people bad-mouthing his father's game. A game with mechanics that fosters this sort of behavior. It became clear to me at this point that Gon was in denial, with Killua even looking curiously at him through the side of his eyes, saying, "People do die in this game, you know."
Yeah, it's like, come on, we could do with the help.
Saying things like, "The scariest thing isn't the game, it's the player's willingness to take cards by hurting others." And while that observation is, in a very technical sense, the case, I think this moment is possibly the most overtly obvious and transparent Gon has been about his father. And this is a running trend during this arc as a whole. There are numerous instances where players try their best to survive in this game, and yet the only thing Gon seems to get angry at is how some choose to not have fun with the game and instead focus on their own escape. He can't seem to empathize with the position.
So it's like, because his dad said to enjoy it, it's like, well, I'm going to, and everyone else has to. Wow.
This is the one aspect of this arc that I borderline hate.
Oh god, here we go.
Just so we're clear, I can totally see someone liking the story more specifically because of
There are people out there that absolutely love the Greed Island arc, aren't there?
I loved the material before this, and I really love the material.
I summon Slicer, the Sky Dragon.
Extremely unappealing about this arc so far. The game. I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever seen something like Greed Island ever attempted before in an anime. Something like Sword Art Online comes to mind, but that sort of cops out by making the game work under real-world logic with limited amounts of exposition needed
Yeah.
to actually understand or enjoy the game being played by the characters. It pretty much gamifies anime, something that us as an audience already understand. But
I need to watch
Greed
Jin Sama.
Island, Togashi animeifies gaming. This is legitimately a game with mechanics, spells, and rules, and so many rules.
Yeah.
On one hand, I'm legitimately impressed, like this could actually be a game, and I think once you learn how to play it, actually could be fun. However, one thing I will say is that whenever I get asked if I'd like to play a board game with my friends, one of the main things holding me back from always saying yes is the necessary or required reading before you can play it. In other words,
Okay.
you need to understand the rules in order to play, and I think that's one of this arc's weakest areas. There are
So many rules.
so many
Yeah.
things we need to learn in this arc about this game. Before we go into the game,
Yeah,
let's
there's
go
too
over how it
much.
works. When we enter the game, the menu girl tells us more about how it works.
Yeah.
When we meet the group of recruiters, they lecture us more about how the game works and the metagame therein. And as their scenes
There's so
continue
much
later on down the line,
explanation
there's
about all
more
the
information
cards.
to us as an audience. Heck, chapter 134 has literally 4 entire pages of just spells and their functions. There's no artwork here, and you know what? I wouldn't mind either if this was story, but it's
What?
not. It's just cards. It's just cards and what they do.
Oh my god, that is absolutely left out. Let me speak to her for a second. There are 4 pages of just text.
Togashi has actually gone out of his way to make this game, but it does come with that significant downside.
God.
The game itself requiring us as readers to understand how it works, scenes that would normally be written to satisfy the showing and not telling function of a story are effectively put on the back
It's
burner in
gone.
favor of long stretches of dialogue sequences as some guy talks about a
Jesus
particular spell or mechanic
Christ.
or whatever. Again, literally 4 pages of spells with no artwork. I can't stress enough how little reading these pages received from me. I do
That
not
is
read them because I
so
do not
weird.
want to. Part of me also thinks it's hilarious, by the way, so I don't hate it completely. But that's not to
Jesus.
say that it's all talking either. Although there is a lot of explaining through dialogue in the opening of this arc, there are instances of showing and not telling too. Take for example the exchange in chapter 133 where Killua and Gon, after winning the Sword of Truth, get tailed by some creeps looking to steal their newly acquired card.
Right.
The means with which Gon and Killua avoid this card being stolen was both fun and informative. For me, I prefer to learn by playing and not by reading. I mean, even I know that the opening tutorials of games are better suited when you play and understand the game rather than the game lecturing you about how it's supposed to be
Yeah.
played. The same applies
Like,
to
experience
this
it.
arc. And look, I know, I ragged earlier on Togashi's overall convoluted means of communicating the lore and rules of this game to us, but that's not to say that there isn't a tremendous and subtle play being made during this either. At every available opportunity, almost to a pathetic degree, Gon would go out of his way to express how much
Fun he's having,
whether
right.
that be to Killua as he anticipates what the combat might look like, or even after something as mundane as buying a map. He's quick to make up excuses for the dangerous or boring elements of the game.
He
and
is proper
in
in
the same breath
denial, like,
condemns
just
those
wants
that
his
would
dad
try
to
their
like him,
best
man.
to
It's
win
mad,
and
that,
effectively
yeah.
save their own lives from it. And you know what? This aspect of the arc is easily its strongest quality for me. And that's when we get this exchange between members of the Phantom Troop after hopping into the game themselves.
このゲームは仮想世界ではなく
This was a weird reveal.
現実世界のどこかで行われている
This was a brilliant swerve, and
Yes.
ironically one that conflicts with Gon's current fantasy land he's currently living in. If this is true, this shatters what Gon was saying about his father. But something tells me that even more mental gymnastics are on the horizon for our little Gon character. And without missing a step, with almost perfect comedic timing, this is definitely my favorite section thus far in the arc. There's
Yeah.
plenty of Gon confronting some grim truths, but there's also this character called Biscuit. And as a character,
She's
I didn't expect
brilliant.
her to be such a nice fit for the group, and on first viewing, I never would have anticipated her to impact the plot the way that she has. With all of the exposition over the last 20 or
Biscuit's
so
class.
chapters, I was relieved to see that we were finally getting some light or comedic interactions with a much smaller scope for a bit. In essence, the boys are now trying to make their way through this crowd of monsters, and while we're made aware that this little girl-looking person called Biscuit is following them, I enjoyed how, even before we as an audience were made aware of her identity and profession, that she still continued to tail them, continuing to comment on their progress or promise as Nen users. adventures.
She
Apart
helps
from
them.
getting to see the two boys engage with all sorts of strange
I like how she just
throughout this
forces them
area,
to fight somebody.
seeing her finally drop the act and tell them who she really is was honestly quite interesting. Not just because it's nice to see who we're finally dealing with, but also to get a much more accurate understanding of how powerful some folks really are relative to the rest. And as luck would have it, she's actually a 57-year-old Nen master of sorts. She taught Wing everything he knows back in the day, and now she wants to help teach the boys? Okay, I'm game. Yeah, let's do this.
Crack.
Wait, they need to deal with him. Alright, so the current objective right now is to defeat this man she just defeated in moments within a 2-week time limit. None of them can leave the area. If the two boys fail, they get punished, and if he fails, then he gets killed by Biscuit. Now, this right from the outset was interesting to me for one prevailing reason.
Go on.
With a stipulation like that, it's tailor-made to deliver one specific conclusion. A conclusion that shows how much more adept in a combat sense Gon and Killua have become, as well as to give them a chance to shine from an emotional standpoint also. Gon has no malice for this guy, despite what
No, not
she's
at all,
told
yeah.
him about him. And throughout this fight, we get a sort of peek into his past living in the slums
Oh, yeah, he was-
struggling there. But despite knowing this, Gon won't finish him, even after he gives up. It's a great sequence, but to be honest, the end of it was my favorite, with Biscuit remarking that he's a flawless specimen and it makes him a delicate balance. Now that sounds surprisingly similar to how the Appraiser described Gon earlier. That
Huh.
is not a coincidence.
How
That's
other
when we
people
get
are seeing
the
it.
training portion of this story.
Woohoo.
The training portion of the story is easily its strongest section from a pure enjoyment standpoint for me. I love the Biscuit character, what she represents as a goal, and what sort of challenges or obstacles she places in front of Killua and Gon. Sleeping with a rock hoisted above their head, digging through a mountain, fighting...
It was silly,
wild
over-the-top
animals.
stuff.
All of these are such fun ideas and gave me much needed respite from the prior exposition-heavy sections. And to be honest, sections like this can only exist when the exposition is gotten out of the way. Take any popular work. Whenever you're feeling like you're getting a lot of words or explanations thrown at you, oftentimes, at least if the story is halfway decent, it's an indication that there's something impressive coming up later. And normally this takes the form of a big page spread or a nice action sequence or something. But instead, Togashi, it seems, decided to stretch out that garnered time in the form of a training mini-arc. And while I didn't enjoy all of the clunky explanations earlier, I did very much enjoy this portion of the story centered around Gon's training. And curiously,
And
too,
Killua.
Biscuit remarks to herself that the game Greed Island, if played in the correct
Whoosh.
order, naturally makes the player stronger. And she, perhaps correctly, reckons that Jing made it like this, perhaps to train his son.
Yeah.
This would answer my question that I posed in the first York New video, where I asked, if Jing is so gung-ho on never being found or meeting up with Gon, why did he leave all of that stuff behind in the first place? And the answer to that Biscuit seems to be satisfied with, is so that Gon can get stronger.
Yeah.
Implications of which I'm not sure if I want to read into. Does Jing want to fight Gon? Right, so while all of that is happening, the subplot between the large
There's
group of
other stuff
ones
going
combat
on. You don't know
murderers
about the
with
Dark
non-native
Continent.
guards resumes. And I'm oh so grateful for how this one ended.
Oof.
At the moment, there
The
are
reveal
currently
for this
four
was cool,
plot
but
threads
it was so
going on.
lame as a villain,
The
like...
covering the truth of the island, the Monopoly gang, the killers of the game, and of course, Gon and Killua's training under Biscuit. And half of these I don't care at all about. Those being the killers of the game and the lads looking to organize.
Yeah, it was like an
Monopoly. I
instant
think
moment of,
would be at
oh
least a
dear,
little
he's the bad
interesting
guy, and then it's like,
stories in various ways, but these just
so...
didn't do it for me.
He's the bad guy.
Though Togashi does fix this eventually. How? Well, by having the killers infiltrate the Monopoly crowd, steal all of their cards, and
Yeah.
I love how this scene was handled. It focuses on a small collection of 3 characters as they weasel their way into the position of power before ultimately betraying and deceiving everybody that trusted them.
Yeah.
This gives us a clear point of conflict for Gon and Killua to run up against eventually, give us a goal as an audience, and it helped us understand and better get to know the individuals involved. Overall, I'm delighted with this creative decision. Things are far more simple now, and the story feels all of the better for it, and this isn't even my favorite part of the story. Throughout this tale, a minor subplot concerning certain members of the Phantom Troop and the Greed Island video game has yielded brief but fascinating moments of intrigue for me. Completely recontextualizing the entire occasion as not a game, but instead a teleporter to a real-life
an island.
closely
Yeah.
monitored by some spooky and imposing individual that claims to be one of the creators of the game before yeeting everyone away.
Yeah, he just literally gets rid of them, doesn't he? It's like, boom.
Fashion. And furthermore, he probably knows about Jing, so
Well, yeah,
let's
he does.
friggin' go. Maybe this Greed Island game wasn't a complete waste of time.
Wasn't
for
he
Gon after all.
imprisoned for doing something and then getting let him like stay there to look after the island
One of the most important aspects of a training arc
instead.
is to visibly see, in no uncertain terms, the progression made by the trained individual. It's basic, and we see it in pretty much every training arc's conclusion. We saw it after the time skip in Dragon Ball when Goku arrives at the tournament all grown up and
no one recognizes him.
We saw it in Eren Yeager's fantastic 3D maneuvering in episode 4.
Yeah.
And we saw it numerous times throughout My Hero Academia. Point is, we gotta see
Powerpuff
as an
Girls.
audience that oh so delicious contrast from what once was to what is now. And boy, do we see that in Greed Island. Lingering in the back of my mind all this time was, just when exactly is Togashi going to have Killua get his hunter's license? Partially, I was thinking about
Funny
this because
when he just goes,
sure,
"Oh, okay, I'll just solo it."
yet another copy
And that was cool
of
because
the
they already
exact same
recognised him and
story
just
again,
skipped through that bit, yeah.
While we did retread some familiar and, admittedly nostalgic territory, Killua made sure that his was a brief affair, with the
Very
first
brief.
phase proving to be little challenge to the young boy, eliminating literally
Everybody.
everyone who participated at once and achieving his license there and then.
'Cause,
And
like,
upon his
there's no one else to
return,
compete
Killua
against, so,
says
like,
the
yeah.
hilarious line, "It took me longer to get here than it did to get the license." And that's not even the craziest part of this entire section. When Killua arrives back and regains his bearings with the group, check out what happens when Killua looks at their recent encounters list.
Kuroro!
Okay, so now this story has gone from good to the most interesting I've encountered
It's
so
like,
far.
wait, what?
While this story did have a rather rough start, boasting some of the most arduous and clunky narrative portions from the series, I genuinely think this story, particularly in its latter stuff, makes full use of characters that were established in the
Already,
prior material and has massive stakes both in terms of the lives at risk and in terms of personal investment. We've gone from a game that was once made by some guy to a game that will kill you, and then to a game that will kill you but isn't really a game but instead a teleporter to a particular island in the real world.
Yeah.
This is like Lost or something. This is a really crazy revelation.
There's a lot going
and
on.
it's brilliant. And now we learn Hisoka's here as Crollo's proxy. This is insane. And can I just say, my favorite drawing in this portion so far has to be this drawing of Crollo from chapter 149. Togashi seems to really love how this character looks, and how pretty he is seems really important to him because he receives, as a character, the best treatment in the manga visually, far above everyone else. Now, I haven't gone back over the manga a tremendous amount to make this claim, but it seems to me, when I'm reading it, that Crollo is drawn with, like, different materials, or
It's just like, everything else is just like, the ultimate effort is gone on Crollo.
He's always like super rendered or super well drawn and never drawn poorly, or at least not that I've seen. Anyways, it's cool to see Crollo back so soon and in such a creative way. I'm delighted to see what's to come from this, and additionally, I'd like to know how he got a console with a game in the first place. This is only the first half of this arc, naturally, and I loved what this arc has become and the direction it's going. Next week, I'll be reading the rest of what this arc has to offer, and I really hope it can stick the landing to what I think it's gearing.
The volleyball
Fingers
match.
crossed it can, but regardless, I can't wait to share my thoughts on it with you all next week. I'm totally not Mark. Thank you so much for watching.
Like I said though, Greed Island for me is the weakest bit, and it's funny because like I'm watching this after I've seen all the anime and read the mangas after the fact as well. It's like it definitely is like the weakest, especially when you know what's happening next as well. Like the Chimera Ant arc is just so good. I can't wait to see what he says on that. It's going to be interesting when we see Kite as well, because again, like anime wise, oh, he's just doing manga, isn't it? So that's a silly thing for me to say. Interesting as well that there are OVAs from same time but different director and stuff, so so people weren't wrong that it didn't finish, but they kind of were. Anyway, I would like to thank my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video, down below, $1 a month, I don't ask for any more than that. And thank you guys very much for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe, haven't already, leave comments down below. Let me know what you watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys. So you guys next time.